Today, I am covering how to start mastering boundaries, one of my favorite topics next to priorities. They're related, but not the same exactly. I love talking about boundaries because most people are reacting to everything around them, playing that whack-a-mole game. You know that, remember that game, whack-a-mole at the arcade? Please tell me you remember that game. If you don't, go to an arcade and play that game. Most people are reacting to everything around them like they're playing whack-a-mole. Something comes up, whack, whack the mole. Something comes up, whack the mole. And you're accommodating other people at your own expense. And that's not sustainable for anybody because you don't want regrets. You don't want to look back and wish you had the courage to do things differently. One of my coaching clients, that's exactly what she said when she came to me. She's like, I can't live like this. I don't want to be 55 and say, what happened to me? Why did I do it that way? She went from stressed, always working around the clock, no vacations, no rest, no personal time, no me time, barely slept, to loving her life, having time for herself, having start and stop times for work, boundaries, sleeping 9 hours a night, boundaries. So much of her progress was related to establishing and holding her boundaries. Listen, you have 3 months left in the year. 3. I was telling people in June, December's coming around the corner, and they were all telling me, no, don't say that. We're almost in December. You have 3 months left in the year. Where you are and who you will be in January is going to be determined by the thoughts you believe and the actions you take every single day until then. If you want to set boundaries that will stick, you have to start with what you believe. If I tell you that boundaries are limits that you set to protect something or someone of high priority, do you believe that? Do you believe that's true? And if you're going to tell me, yes, Arivi, I believe that's true. Boundaries are limits that I set to protect myself, my well-being, and that's a high priority to me to take care of myself. And boundaries are limits that I set to protect time with my family and to protect the time I have with friends. If you're going to tell me that, then I want you to answer this question for me. How would I know by looking at your actions every day that that is what you believe? How would I know by looking at what you do every day that you believe that boundaries are limits that you set to protect something or someone of high priority, including yourself? You're a high priority to yourself. Please, yes, you are. This is the critical first step to setting boundaries. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior because you can't control that. You cannot try to or control what anyone else does. All you can do is control what you respond with. In addition to believing that boundaries are limits that you set for yourself to protect someone or something of high priority, you must also believe that you must protect your non-negotiables because they reflect what's most important to you. So your non-negotiables are rooted in your top priorities and your core values. Your core values are the principles that guide the decisions that you make, how you live your life, and how you interact with other people. To get at your priorities and core values and to make them come to life, you also have to be able to crystallize in your mind's eye, what do I want life and work to look like? What do I want life and work to look like? Let me tell you, almost every client I have says they want a combination of in their life joy, fulfillment, peace, calmness, energy, aliveness, tranquility. But what does that actually look like for you in 3 months? Again, recording in October, so you have 3 months until the end of the year. What does that look like for you in 3 months? What does it look like for you in 1 year? What does that all look like for you in 5 years? Only you know that. But that's the direction that you have to be headed in. And you have to believe it. You have to believe in it. Believe that's possible to get there or pretty close. And this is the kind of work that we do in coaching, right? So you can have that clarity and that conviction. You can feel confident in the decisions that you make and that you have boundaries that you enforce without all this guilt. It's amazing how easy people find this to be after they get that clarity and they feel convicted and they start practicing enforcing boundaries. So let me give you an example. If you believe that your well-being is a priority, so you must have time for yourself each day. That's your non-negotiable. You believe your well-being is a top priority, so that you must have time for yourself every day. That is a non-negotiable. What does that non-negotiable look like in practice? You're saying that you believe your well-being is a top priority. You're saying that having time for yourself each day is non-negotiable. But what does that non-negotiable actually look like in practice? What do you do every single day to live that non-negotiable, to implement that non-negotiable, to show that that is your non-negotiable? Well, one way you could do that is you could implement no meetings or work before 8 a.m. So I have time for myself to do whatever the heck I want to do. Maybe it's exercise, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's breath work, maybe it's just sitting by myself, having coffee or tea or water with lemon. Amen, water with lemon. I love that. Maybe it's just being quiet before the whole world presents to you their agenda and what you need to do for them. Maybe you just take before 8 a.m. to tend to your own needs and your own agenda before the world starts distracting you, interrupting you, and demanding things of you. But you see the difference between saying you believe something and saying you want to do something, but actually having your life reflect that thing that you say is important to you, like your well-being, right? You believe well-being is top priority. Fantastic. You believe that you have to have time for yourself each day. That's your non-negotiable. Fantastic. Now, let's see what it looks like in practice for you. Okay, well, I'm going to have no meetings before 8 a.m. so I can have me time and I can spend that time however I want so I can have that time for myself and not be tending to other people's needs before my own. And to be very clear, and you know I'm very passionate about this, boundaries are self-care. They are self-care. No boundaries, no self-care. No boundaries, no self-care. Boundaries require you do nothing additional. It's not about adding something to your plate. Listen, it's more about removal, streamlining, prioritizing. That's the beauty of them. It doesn't ask you to do more. It's telling you to prioritize, double down, and even remove things that you are doing that you don't need to be doing anymore. Boundaries are not going to stick unless they are rooted in clarity and conviction in your belief system. So I had a client, let's call her Monica, always letting people come into her office and schedule meetings over her blocked off time. This is something that a lot of my clients deal with, but she's also always letting people come into her office and interrupting her. And she was never really able to get her work done because she had work that she had to produce herself. And instead of doing it during the day, because there are people coming into her office, she felt like people always needed things from her. She was taking her own work home at night. She was working late at night. She would put the kids to bed and then work on her work that she was supposed to be doing during the day at her job. And she always felt rushed and she always felt behind, like there was so much to do and she couldn't catch up. But the reality was that she was being too accommodating to other people's needs and not accommodating her own needs, like getting her own work done during the day so she could have more space and time for her family and rest at night. So I helped her get clear about her core values, her true priorities, the non-negotiables, what it would look like to feel calmer and more intentional about her life, which is what she wanted. And she got clear about what was most important to her when it came to her work and her personal life. And each day, slowly but surely, one step at a time, she aligned what she did with those answers. She set boundaries and worked on holding them. So her behavior, her actions, what she did every day, aligned with who she said she wanted to become. Because this is the truth. And this is what Monica did. At some point, she said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it the way that I'm doing it anymore. It's not working for me. And the same thing I would say to you. At some point, you have to decide what you will accept and what you will not accept anymore. You have to draw the line in the sand here. And don't tell yourself you don't have time. Don't tell yourself that. That's not factually accurate. You, of course, have time. You have time. We can reframe it as you make the time. You will find the time. We can reframe it that way if that helps you. But it's better to, instead of saying, I don't have time for that, I'm too busy for that, instead of saying that, own it. Own it and say, no, I choose not to make the time because it's not the most important thing right now. Or say, no, I choose not to make the time because I don't care enough about it right now. Like, own it. Own the fact that you don't want to do it. Own it and then make peace with that fact. Use your agency. You have a ton of agency and it remains so dormant and completely untapped. You're letting it just sit there when there's so much more on the other side. If you're willing to open up your eyes, your minds, and your heart and your spirit to the possibility of seeing it. But you're not going to see it if you're constantly telling yourself and repeating the thought to your brain that you're too busy, you don't have time, you don't have time. You're not going to ever see the possibility because your brain is believing that thought you're telling it. You do not want to reach December and January and be right where you are. That's what will happen if you don't do something different, especially with your boundaries. It starts with what you believe and what you're willing to do to align your belief with what you really want, how you really want to live. You can pick one thing. Say, I want to have a start and stop time for my workday. And of course, you're going to be flexible when it's necessary. But if you're always flexing, that's not a boundary. Maybe you set one goal from here until January and say, I'm going to implement this one thing because it's a priority for me. It's a belief that well-being is my priority. My non-negotiable is this. This is how I'm going to live my non-negotiable. Pick one thing and do that every single day. And if you get nice with it for 2 months, add something else. Stack on another habit. Do it, but don't overwhelm yourself here. Start with one. And if you're still nice with it after 2 months, 2.5 months, stack on another. What you have to know is that if you don't do anything differently, you're not going to be any different in January. It's just not going to happen. I don't want to give you false hope here. If you don't do anything differently, you're not going to be any different because who you are and who you become is a result of what you think, what you do, your habits, and how you move through the world. It's based on what you repeatedly do and what you repeatedly think. And if you're not changing your thoughts and changing what you're doing, you're the same person. You know that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and about 90% of those are repetitive. And we know that the thoughts that you believe create your actions, your behaviors, your habits. So if you're thinking the same things every day, you're believing them, you'll be doing the same each day all the way to January. I know I'm repeating but I really want you to understand that you cannot sustain and wallow. Oh, you're so tired. Oh, I'm so exhausted. Oh, I can't live like this. I can't do this anymore, but then do nothing to change it. Because I'm not going to be the person you can complain to. I'm the person you can complain to, and I will sit with you in the suckiness of it, but I'm going to ask you, so what are you going to do about it? Like, that's why you come to me for coaching. You want to do something about it. You feel like, you know what? I'm done. I'm drawing the line in the sand. I'm putting my stake in the ground and I'm done. I'm done living and working in this way. It worked for me up to a certain point, and now it doesn't work for me anymore. It's at my expense and I'm really struggling. This is unsustainable. Boundaries is one of the key things you have to learn to be excellent at. Just like you're excellent at your job, you got to be excellent at boundaries. You got to be excellent at prioritizing. You got to be excellent at self-care. This is what brings a good life to you. You double down on what's most important to you and you live that. Because when you are 80, 90, hopefully your old age and you're thinking about your life, you don't want to regret anything. You want to say that you did it your way, that you could spend your time and your energy in the way that you most wanted to, in a way that was most meaningful to you. And until you decide and put your stake in the ground and say, you know what? I'm ready to enter a more empowered version of myself. And I am ready to do things differently. And I know it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because it is. I'm not lying. It will be uncomfortable at first. Change is uncomfortable for your brain. Your brain rather choose the misery that you already know. It likes that because it's familiar, even though it's not healthy for you. Your brain loves the familiar. So even if it's miserable, better the devil you know. That's what your brain is going to try to convince you of. And you have to say, no, 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 no. There is a better way. I know this is scary. I know change can be really uncomfortable. Yeah, it's all uncertain, but I know there's something better on the other side. And I know that even if I make 20% progress, that's 20% more than where I was before and where I'll stay until January if I don't do anything, which is at 0%. Something is always better than nothing. But I'm talking about real transformation. I'm talking about way more than 20%. Give yourself the opportunity to do something different so you can have what you say that you want, so you can feel the way that you want to feel, which is really about feeling really better about yourself and feeling better about how you do work and life. And you all know me very well. You know that work is a part of life, but I say work and life because some people still think of them as separate. And so I'm trying to make sure that you understand it's all encompassing, it's holistic. I want you to feel great about being in your own skin. I want you to feel like you're clear, you're convicted, you're confident in how you make decisions and the decisions that you make and where you're headed and why. I want you to feel so anchored and grounded in that, but you have to do something different to get there if that's what you're looking for. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Make sure that you check out all the other episodes of the Humble Rising podcast on your favorite major podcast platform. You can always check out the podcast on my website, adivivargas.com/podcast.